Happy holidays from Israel. Today is a rare and special day as Christmas and the first eve of Hanukkah overlap, a moment to celebrate light. Families everywhere are coming together to honor traditions, share meals, and create lasting memories. So before we get to the news, we at ILTV wish you all happy holidays. For the second night in a row, central Israel was woken by red alert sirens due to an incoming Yemenite Houthi anti-ballistic missile. Israeli officials are warning Houthi leaders that they are now targets. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
The sounds of red alert sirens sounded yet again in the middle of the night throughout central Israel. For the fifth time in just over a week, millions of Israelis had to run to shelter. Air defense shot down the rocket outside Israeli airspace. A large piece of the missile fell in the yard of a home in Be'er Yaakov without causing injuries. Police say that large fragments fell in at least 3 locations. There were no injuries from the rocket fragments, but there were injuries reported as civilians rushed to safe rooms. Defense Minister Katz said that the Houthi leadership will pay a heavy price. Katz warned that Israel will begin targeting rebel group leaders. Just as we took care of Sinwar in Gaza, Hania in Tehran, and Nasrallah in Beirut, Katz said, we will deal with the heads of the Houthis in Sana'a or anywhere in Yemen. Firing at Houthi leaders would mark an escalation by Israel, which until now targeted port infrastructure and military sites in response to repeated launches of drones and ballistic missiles from Yemen. From now on, Israel will act both against Houthi infrastructure and against its leaders until the threat is removed.
And joining us now to discuss all of this is Dr. Nir Baums, research fellow at the Moshe Dayan Center at Tel Aviv University. Thank you, Neil, for joining.
Good to be here.
So, Neil, we see the Houthis targeting Tel Aviv and central Israel again. I myself, along with my children and all of the other residents of central Israel, have had to run for shelter at 3 or 4 a.m. most nights this past week. I think the Israeli public is feeling that they've had enough. What could and should be done about this threat, in your opinion?
Well, I think that we're doing a lot of what we should be doing. And I think that with time, and it took perhaps more time than we wanted and more time than we thought, but we've seen the arenas of the proxies of Iran in Lebanon, in Syria begin to crumble. And we've seen more significant activity also on the Yemenite front. And it's important that we're not going to do it on our own. It's important that the Americans, the Brits, and others will work with us. This is perhaps, fortunately, an interest not just of ours. So there is more interest and willing to act in tandem, and we need to stop them. I don't think that diplomacy will work here.
So how do you foresee Israel will handle the Houthis? What steps can be taken?
Well, what needs to be taken is to put as much pressure as possible. And some of this pressure is in the form of targeted military strikes on the relevant infrastructures. Again, this is a target that's 2,000 kilometers away from us. It's not something that can be done every day or every week, as was the case in Syria and Lebanon. But it's a campaign that needs to find a conclusion. It's a campaign that needs to get the help of other stakeholders that hopefully will help bring Yemen to a different place. Remember that the Houthis have taken Sana'a in another military coup and have taken over a land that is one of the poorest countries on earth. There is so little there aside from the Houthi infrastructure, so it's not a matter of just bombing the civilian infrastructures. There's not a lot there. Everything is invested. Rather than in the well-being of the population, it's invested in the well-being of the militia that is funded by Iran. We need to distance that militia. We need to show the people in Yemen as well that that's not the way. And eventually help push for a different reality in Yemen, and certainly to stop the Houthis and to eliminate the relevant infrastructure and military infrastructure that enables them to continue this work. And remember, this is not the Houthis on their own. This is one of the last fronts that remains in Iranian hands. And this is why they're getting all the equipment and all the latest technology. This is not their doing, it's Iran.
So what is it that Israel can target in Yemen? You've explained how complex this is, and Israel has announced targeting Houthi leaders directly. How likely is this to change things around?
We've seen this with Hezbollah, we've seen this with Hamas. Eventually, every structure has leadership and has management structure. And if we're able to take some of the leadership structure, we are weakening the ability to respond. That had worked in Gaza, that had worked in Lebanon, that eventually had worked in Syria when we have taken the Iranian-based infrastructures and left the field more free for al-Jolani to eventually take over. In Yemen, it could be that more of that needs to happen. Of course, it's more difficult to do this, but perhaps speaking about some of this and scaring and letting the leadership understand that they're at risk will also do at least a part of this work. Eventually, it's not a team that can be easily convinced by using diplomatic pressure to stop what they're doing. They're ideological, they're dedicated, and they are operated by a country that's not yet willing to give up. Perhaps additional pressure on Iran can do the work, and perhaps the new administration in the United States will be able to do some things that were not done before.
And Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz compared this strategy of targeting the leadership to actions taken against Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar or Hezbollah's Hassan Nasrallah. You believe this will be an effective approach?
If leadership team, in addition to the relevant infrastructure, is going to be weakened, naturally it's going to affect the effectiveness of any military campaign. Just like in the case of Hezbollah, you have leaders who are responsible for this targeted operation. There are not so many of them, so every leader has a significant command responsibility. In the case of Hezbollah, we've seen many of these leaders who have been there not just for 5 or 6 years, but for 10, 15, and 20 years. They are not irreplaceable, but it's more difficult to replace them. And therefore, taking the command structure certainly weakens the movement. This movement needs to be weakened. This movement needs to be eliminated. Of course, we need to find also alternatives for the future. But this is a challenge that is much broader than the one that Israel can take.
And just last, how are international players likely to respond to this latest escalation? Can we expect assistance from global or even regional allies?
I think we have seen some assistance already, and I think we need to remember that the regional allies have been involved in the war in Yemen, but they have taken a few steps back, realizing that they're not able to do it alone. I think here we need to hope, not just rely, but we need to hope that American leadership will be more assertive, and what we've seen lately is encouraging. The allies in the region are suffering deeply from the economic ramifications of what is happening in Bab el-Mandeb. They very much would like to see this problem sorted. They're a part of a regional coalition, and they can do more. And with the right leadership, I think they will.
Dr. Nir Bams, thank you very much.
Good to be here.
The Israeli hostage for ceasefire negotiating team has returned from Doha for consultations. The team returned after what was described as a significant week of talks. According to Israeli officials, most deal components are nearly finalized, but Hamas continues to refuse to provide a complete list of living hostages. The Prime Minister's office said the team is returning for internal discussions regarding the sticking points of the negotiations. Officials emphasized that the return of negotiators after 10 days in Qatar does not indicate a breakdown in the talks. But Israeli officials are placing blame on Hamas in Gaza, particularly its leader Mohammed Sinwar, for refusing to provide a full list of living hostages in an attempt to extract further concessions. The IDF commander of the Menashe Brigade, Colonel Ayuk Kayub, was wounded during a counterterrorism operation in Tulkarem in Samaria. According to the IDF, Kayub was moderately injured and was evacuated to the hospital. The commanding officer of the Judea and Samaria Division, Brigadier General Yaki Dolf, was in the vehicle that was targeted by terrorists this morning. The anti-terror operation is ongoing in Tulkarem. 8 gunmen have reportedly been killed in airstrikes and during clashes with the IDF. The army has arrested 18 wanted men in the sweep and confiscated dozens of weapons. The IDF announced they concluded a 2-week-long cyber defense drill with the United States military this week, codename Cyber Dome. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian is outside the Kiryat in Tel Aviv, where the Ministry of Defense and IDF headquarters are located, with details on the drill and its importance.
Well, the exercise between the U.S. military and the IDF is known as the Cyber Dome 9, and it was conducted in the United States over the last 2 weeks. Now, this Cyber Dome 9 is the primary cyber defense exercise that happens between the U.S. Cyber Command and the IDF. Now, it's an annual event that works to enhance each country's cyber capabilities on their own, but also working together. It is the 9th time these countries met to do this exercise, and what they do is they use operational scenarios to train off of. This, of course, is all happening as Israel continues to battle Iran's proxies, especially as they see threats from Iran happening on the cyber world as well.
Thank you, Shosh. 1/3 of the children in Israel live under the poverty line. On the front lines tackling the problem is Yad Ezra Shulamit with its expanding program of children's centers. More from ILTV, Steve Leibowitz.
Due to the ongoing multi-front war, the number of poor children in Israel continues to grow. Yad Ezra Shulamit has found a solution to break the cycle of poverty by creating children's centers that provide for youngsters living under the poverty line. There are now 3 children's centers. One is in Tzfat in the Galilee, one in Jerusalem, and a new center that is opened in the Neve Yaakov in northern Jerusalem, specifically to serve the needs of poor Ethiopian Jewish immigrant children. The project started back in 2007 with 50 kids. Now the 3 centers are serving the needs of 400 children. Some of the kids are orphans. In order to thrive, these kids need the basics that they don't receive at home. The kids get school supplies and new clothes and other winter gear. They come after school at 1 and stay until 5. During the 4 hours at the children's centers, the kids get a hot meal, tutoring, and emotional therapies. And they receive a lot of love.
And joining me now is celebrity chef Jamie Geller. Jamie, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
So Hanukkah is around the corner, starting this evening. What are your thoughts for the upcoming holiday?
Well, first of all, when you think about the holiday, you think about the gifts and the food and the family and the warmth and the lights, honestly, lighting the candles at the darkest time of year when the days are shorter. It's such a special, magical, festive time. But honestly, for me, my heart goes out to the people who will not be looking forward to the holiday in the same way that I am. There are so many families here which are missing people because of the war. And there's so many families that won't even be able to give each other gifts the same way that we all are doing and showering our kids. They don't even have the necessities, a warm meal, a warm coat, blankets, things, just all of the gear to keep them warm this winter. And so that's why I'm here talking to you today.
And what message do you want to send to our viewers right now?
Well, I want to say to everyone watching, you've always been there for us, for the children of Yad Ezra Shulamit. When we think about the children, I think of them as my children. There are 400 children in the children's centers of Yad Ezra Shulamit, between 3 centers across the country. You've always helped us feed them, clothe them, ensure that they have the right tutoring and therapies and supplies that they need for school. And now as we come into the winter holiday season, right, Hanukkah marks that time of year, we need to think about making sure that they have a coat. When we're thinking about our gift list for all of our friends and all of our family, we're thinking about luxuries, but these children don't even have the necessities: a warm coat, a warm blanket, boots, stocking socks. So for just $180, you can give a coat and the full winter package to a child, and everything, because of Hanukkah and the holiday, this month is doubled. So when you give one coat and one winter warming package, you're actually making sure that 2 children stay warm this winter.
That's wonderful. Now, you've been crowned the Queen of Kosher. As the Queen, what is your mission?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, initially it started as really just making sure that kosher food and Jewish food was fun and accessible. And then it began a wonderful journey with Yad Ezra Shulamit to make sure that everyone could have food on their table, all of the poor and hungry children and their families here in Israel. And that has just expanded. I've never looked back. So in addition to making sure that the children at the children's centers have hot, warm meals every day and therapies and tutoring services and after-school activities, this winter we're making sure that they have the luxury of being warm. I mean, we would never send our children out into the winter days with sandals and thin shirts. So sweaters, coats, boots, blankets, socks. That has just been what my mission has been this winter, and my partnership with Yad Ezra Shulamit has given me so much mission and purpose, and it's really also because of you and your support. So I thank you so much.
And how, again, can people help?
It is so easy. Just scan the code right below. Everything is doubled in the spirit of the holiday and giving and festivity. It's a time of miracles. So when you decide to clothe just one child with a coat and a warm winter package, you're really clothing and warming 2. When we think about bringing light into the darkness and praying for miracles this holiday season, be that miracle for someone else. When you warm one of these children, it will really warm your heart. Thank you.
That's an incredible message, Jamie. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
5 suspects have been sentenced in Amsterdam for their roles in the violent incident targeting Israeli soccer fans last month. The attacks, condemned as anti-Semitic by Dutch authorities and international leaders, occurred following a match between Ajax and Maccabi Tel Aviv. On Tuesday, an Amsterdam court handed down sentences to 5 suspects involved in the attack on Israeli soccer fans on November 8th. The sentences ranged from up to 6 months in prison to community service. The court said 3 of the suspects participated directly in the violence, while 2 others used a group messaging app to spread information that contributed to the attack. The violence followed a soccer match between Ajax and Maccabi Tel Aviv. Israeli fans were assaulted in what authorities and foreign leaders have condemned as acts of anti-Semitism. Video footage and witness accounts captured moments of chaos and hatred in Amsterdam streets.
De rechtbank heeft bij de beoordeling van de verdenkingen uiteraard oog voor de context waarin de feiten zich hebben afgespeeld. De rechtbank benadrukt evenwel dat deze context geen enkele rechtvaardiging biedt voor het oproepen tot en het gebruiken van fysiek geweld tegen de Israëlische supporters die voor een voetbalwedstrijd te gast waren in Amsterdam. Evenmin rechtvaardigt het de beledigingen die zijn geuit.
The attack left a chilling impact on the local and global community. Dutch authorities have emphasized the importance of cracking down on hate-driven violence, ensuring that soccer remains a sport and not a battlefield. Is faith the ultimate diplomatic tool? In this week's episode of the ILTV News Podcast, executive editor Mayan Hoffman welcomes MK Moshe Turpaz and Joshua Reinstein to discuss Christian support for Israel and its impact on global diplomacy. Learn how the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus is fostering unprecedented alliances in the face of rising anti-Semitism and international challenges. You'll also gain insights on the role of evangelical support, Trump's upcoming term, and efforts to bring embassies to Jerusalem. You can watch this week's episode on our YouTube channel. Look for ILTV Israel News. This episode is a must-listen for anyone interested in Israel's future. And as Jews celebrate the first eve of Hanukkah, today it is an important time to reflect on the light and the miracles in our lives. I'm joined by Rabbi Ariel Constantine of the Tel Aviv International Synagogue. Rabbi, what can you tell us about the holiday of Hanukkah?
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to share a few words about Hanukkah to our viewers. We're here in the beautiful Tel Aviv International Synagogue getting ready for our candlelighting tonight. We have special celebrations throughout the holiday to bring light to Tel Aviv and to the world. Indeed, Hanukkah is a holiday of light, a festival that we're here to bring some light in dark times Hanukkah falls in the month of Kislev, which is the darkest of months. The days are shortest and coldest, and it's often a time that people may feel to give up hope. But the holiday of Hanukkah teaches us that you should never give up hope. We should always have faith and always look for that little light. And indeed, the Maccabees found that little light amongst the shambles in the violated and desecrated temple in these dark times. They said, we're going to light this little light. Even a little light can make a difference. And God appreciated their efforts and extended that light throughout the 8 days until they could bring new oil, and the light got brighter and brighter as we add a candle each night of the holiday of Hanukkah. These are indeed trying times. 100 hostages still in Gaza, our soldiers out there fighting for our freedom. But we, the Jewish people, our anthem is the hope, Hatikva. We'll never give up hope. We're always going to seek a better future, and with faith in God, He should see our efforts and bring about and usher an era of peace and harmony and tranquility to us, to our people, and to the world at large.
This year's Christmas in Bethlehem carries a somber tone as the town known to be the birthplace of Jesus finds itself marked by a gloomy atmosphere, not celebration. The ongoing conflict in Gaza has cast a shadow over the traditional festivities, yet amidst it all, messages of hope and resilience echo from the Holy Land. In Bethlehem, Christmas is usually a time of vibrant decorations, music, and festive gatherings. But this year, the streets are rather quiet. The Christmas tree in front of the Church of the Nativity remains unlit, and the celebrations have been scaled back to religious rituals. The ongoing war in Gaza has left the mostly Palestinian population of Bethlehem grappling with grief. For a second consecutive year, festivities have been reduced to prayer. The Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, Cardinal Pierbattista Pizzabella, arrived in Bethlehem on Christmas Eve after visiting the Gaza Strip. Addressing the crowds, he urged them to hold on to hope.
I just arrived yesterday from Gaza. I saw everything destroyed.
لاحظت الدمار الشامل.
Poverty, a disaster,
الفقر وكارثة الكوارث.
But I also saw life.
Cardinal Pizzaballa led the midnight mass in the Church of the Nativity, the site believed by Christians to be Jesus' birthplace. He shared a message of unity and renewal.
Our prayer is that this Christmas is the end of terrible period of darkness and a new beginning. We want to turn the page, start writing in this new page something with words of hope, of future, and fraternity, because it's what we need. Enough with division and violence.
Bethlehem's mayor, Anton Salman, echoed these sentiments, emphasizing the need for hope despite the challenges.
The message from Bethlehem is a message of hope, and we insist that we must have the hope in this part of the world, in the Holy Land, because without hope we can't continue surviving in this land.
Moving to Israel marks the beginning of a new chapter, and Pitaro Hecht helps you make it truly yours. Transform your home with interiors that blend style, comfort, and timeless design, from luxurious living spaces to thoughtful details. With high-quality craftsmanship at great value, we create spaces where memories are made. For your new life in Israel, choose Pitaro Hecht, where your home begins.
Now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Mostly clear skies are expected tonight around the country, with temperatures reaching lows of around 8 degrees Celsius or 47 degrees Fahrenheit. Tomorrow, partly cloudy skies are expected alongside steady temperatures, set to reach highs of about 17 degrees Celsius or 63 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, ILTV.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Sivan Raviv, wishing you and your loved ones a warm and joyful holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and thank you so much for watching.